This week, Digital Decay chronicles 10 days in history defined by betrayal, brutality, and bizarre twists of fate. We'll witness the tragic ends of legendary figures, from the brutal execution of William Wallace to the assassination of Irish hero Michael Collins and the grim death of a Saint King on his final crusade. We'll unravel the origins of history's most notorious criminal, Jack the Ripper, and a crime that ignited a movement with the murder of Emmett Till. From the medieval battlefield of Crécy to the shortest war in history, this is a look at the week that was.
Friend or foe? Last year they were all my brothers. Now they hunt me on these same roads.
Michael Collins was the hero who had driven the British Empire out of Ireland. But the peace treaty he signed with Britain created a new, bitter conflict. The Anglo-Irish Treaty created the Irish Free State, but partitioned the island, keeping Northern Ireland under British rule. A brutal civil war erupted between Collins's pro-treaty forces and his old anti-treaty comrades from the IRA. On August 22, 1922, Collins, now the head of the Irish Army, was touring his home county of Cork deep in enemy territory. As his convoy drove through a lonely valley called Beal na Blath, they found a crude barricade blocking the road. A single rifle shot rang out from the hillside above.
We'll fight them! Get out and fight them!
Michael Collins, the man who had done more than anyone to create an independent Ireland, was killed by his own countrymen, a tragic casualty of a brothers' war.
He's gone! They shot him! Oh God, he's gone!
The death of a modern hero at the hands of his former comrades is a profound tragedy. But the story of a nation's champion meeting a bitter, violent end is a tale as old as time. We now journey back over 600 years, from a lonely road in Ireland to the heart of medieval London, for the final, brutal chapter in the life of Scotland's greatest hero.
This body is yours to break, but my loyalty belongs to Scotland.
After years of fighting a brutal guerrilla war for Scottish independence, the hero of Stirling Bridge, William Wallace, had finally been captured. Betrayed by a fellow Scottish knight, he was handed over to the ruthless King Edward I of England, known as Longshanks. Wallace was brought to London not for a trial, but for a public spectacle of royal power and English justice. At Westminster Hall, he was charged with treason against the king. But when the charge of treason was read, Wallace, the supposed traitor, shouted a defiant response that echoed through the hall.
I cannot be a traitor to King Edward, for I was never his subject.
William Wallace's brutal execution was meant to be a warning. Instead, it turned a rebel into a martyr, and his sacrifice became the undying symbol of Scotland's fight for freedom.
I ask for the mercy of God alone. For your English king, I ask for nothing.
The public execution of a single man was a medieval empire's message of power. 500 years later, that same empire, Great Britain, would deliver another message to a different rebellious nation, not by killing a man, but by burning a city.
The Redcoats! They are in our capital! How did this happen? God save the Republic!
In August 1814, during the War of 1812, the young United States was on the brink of disaster. Its army had been routed at the Battle of Bladensburg, leaving the nation's new capital, Washington, D.C., completely undefended. As the British Army marched on the city, President James Madison and his government fled in a panic, leaving the White House abandoned to the invaders. But before she fled, one person made a stand, not with a weapon, but with sheer determination. First, Lady Dolly Madison refused to abandon a symbol of the nation.
A fine meal. And now for the fireworks. Put this entire place to the torch.
A freak hurricane doused many of the flames and forced the British to withdraw. Washington was in ruins, but the portrait and the spirit of the nation, were saved.
To hell with the city! This storm will sink our entire fleet! We must get back!
A nation's capital in flames is a powerful symbol of a war's devastation. But not all of history's great conflicts are decided by fire and cannon. Sometimes the most ambitious campaigns are undone by an enemy you can't even see.
They say the desert will be our tomb. I say it will be our crucible. Our faith will be our victory.
King Louis IX of France was a legend in his own time, so known for his piety and justice that he would later be made a saint. Late in his life, he launched the Eighth Crusade, sailing for Tunis in North Africa, hoping to convert the Sultan to Christianity. His massive Crusader army landed and laid siege to the city, but they were about to face an enemy they could not fight with swords. The siege dragged on in the blistering summer heat. Soon, a horrifying epidemic of dysentery swept through the Crusader camp, caused by poor sanitation and contaminated water.
I dreamed of dying a warrior's death, not like this. Not of filth and fever.
On August 25, 1270, King Louis IX died, and with him, the Eighth Crusade collapsed, defeated not by an army, but by disease.
No crown but Christ's. My kingdom awaits me now.
The death of a saintly king from a common sickness was a grim reminder that even the greatest knights were mortal. Just a few decades later, on a battlefield in France, the entire knightly class would face its own mortality, not from disease, but from a revolutionary new weapon.
Look at them! Peasants with their wooden bows. This will not be a battle. It will be a hunt.
In 1346, during the 100 Years' War, the massive French army, filled with the flower of European chivalry, had cornered a smaller, exhausted English army. The French plan was simple: a glorious, head-on cavalry charge to crush the English peasants. But the English had a secret weapon that would change the face of warfare forever: the longbow. The French knights charged again and again, expecting to smash the English line. But before they could even get close, the English commander gave a single order, and his archers unleashed a weapon the world had never seen used with such devastating effect.
Mon Dieu! The sky, it is full of arrows!
The Battle of Crécy marked the beginning of the end for the mounted knight, proving that a simple weapon in the hands of common men could defeat the greatest nobles in Christendom.
They called us peasants. But today, the peasant's bow has broken the knight's sword.
We now jump forward 500 years to a tiny island off the coast of Africa. On this day, a dispute over a sultan's succession would ignite a conflict so bizarre, so ridiculously swift, that it holds a unique place in history. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, the shortest war ever recorded.
Your flag must be down by 9 o'clock. If it is not, the Royal Navy will open fire.
In 1896, the East African island of Zanzibar was a protectorate of the mighty British Empire. When the pro-British Sultan died, his nephew, Khalid bin Bargash, seized the throne in a coup without London's approval. The British were furious. They anchored 5 modern warships in the harbor and issued a simple ultimatum: abdicate by 9 a.m. or face the consequences. The new Sultan, believing the British were bluffing, fortified his wooden palace and aimed his antique cannons at the fleet. At precisely 9 a.m., the British ultimatum expired. The flag on the Sultan's palace was still flying. The Royal Navy had its orders.
9 o'clock. The Sultan has made his choice. You may open fire.
At 9:38 a.m., just 38 minutes after it began, the Anglo-Zanzibar War was over. The Sultan fled and the British installed their own ruler, ending the shortest war in history.
Bombardment commenced at 09:02 and ceased at 09:40.
We now turn to a dark chapter in American history. a story not of armies or empires, but of a 14-year-old boy, and the horrific crime that would expose the true face of racial hatred to the entire world.
You come back home to me, you hear? You come right back home safe.
In the summer of 1955, Emmett Till, a vibrant 14-year-old from Chicago, visited family in segregated Mississippi. After allegedly offending a white woman at a local store, he was abducted from his great-uncle's home in the middle of the night and brutally murdered. His killers were quickly arrested, and at the trial that followed, his great-uncle Mose Wright did the unthinkable for the time. Despite Mose Wright's brave testimony, the all-white jury deliberated for just 67 minutes before returning a verdict of not guilty. Protected by double jeopardy laws, the two men later sold their story to Look magazine for $4,000, openly and proudly confessing to the murder in horrific detail.
I've covered crime for years, but I've never felt this dirty. This wasn't a trial, it was a sin.
On this earth, Emmett Till's killers were never punished, but the fire their actions ignited would become the civil rights movement and change a nation forever.
This isn't just a march. This is a promise. A promise we made the day we saw his picture. Never again.
On this next day, we leave behind the weight of injustice and turn to the clatter and smoke of a German workshop. This is the story of a bizarre new machine, and the moment a new kind of freedom was born on two wheels.
Good heavens! A carriage that balances on two wheels? It is a madman's death trap. It will never catch on.
But it would catch on. That madman's death trap was the creation of German engineers Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach. Their main goal was to create a small, powerful internal combustion engine that could power any kind of vehicle. This Reitwagen, or riding car, wasn't meant to be a product, but a simple, mobile test bed to prove their new grandfather clock engine actually worked. To test the machine, Daimler's teenage son, Paul, was tasked with taking it on its first real journey, a 3-kilometer ride. The ride was a success, proving the engine worked, but it wasn't without problems.
Father, it works, but the seat is on fire.
On August 29, 1885, Daimler patented his creation. While he would soon move on to 4-wheeled automobiles, his riding car was the first spark, the birth of the motorcycle, and a culture of freedom on 2 wheels.
The seat may burn, but the idea works. This engine, this will give man the freedom of a horse.
From the birth of a small machine that would change personal travel, we now journey back 5 centuries and across the globe for a conflict on a truly massive scale.
There is no retreat. Our homes are behind us, and hell is in front. Make your peace.
In the 14th century, as the Mongol Empire crumbled, China was torn apart by civil war. 2 men rose above the rest: the brutal rebel leader Chen Yuliang, who commanded a massive fleet of giant tower ships, and a cunning, ambitious warlord named Zhu Yuanzhang. In 1363, their 2 fleets met on Lake Poyang for a battle that would decide the fate of China. Chen Yuliang's fleet was far larger and his ships were like castles on water. But Zhu Yuanzhang, the brilliant tactician, saw a critical weakness in his enemy's formation. He decided to fight not with size, but with fire.
Their great ships are a prison of fire. Send in the fire ships! Burn them all!
Zhu Yuanzhang's fire ship attack was a catastrophic success. The massive tower ships chained together became a floating inferno. The battle raged for days, but in the end, the enemy fleet was annihilated, and their leader, Chen Yuliang, was killed by an arrow while trying to escape. With his greatest rival eliminated, Zhu Yuanzhang was now the undisputed master of southern China. The Battle of Lake Poyang cemented Zhu Yuanzhang's power, allowing him to found the Great Ming Dynasty, which would rule China for nearly 300 years.
The river is ours. The south is ours. Now, the Dragon Throne itself awaits.
History is often defined by massive epic battles where armies clash and the enemy is clear. But sometimes the most terrifying conflicts are not fought against an army, but against a single invisible phantom, a killer who hides in the shadows.
A fog this thick hides all manner of sins. A perfect night for the devil's work.
In 1888, the Whitechapel district of London was a desperate, overcrowded slum, rife with crime, poverty, and disease. In the pre-dawn hours of August 31st, a 43-year-old woman named Mary Ann Nichols was walking these dangerous streets. She was about to become a grim footnote in history. Just before 4 a.m., a cart driver named Charles Cross was walking to work when he saw a dark shape lying in the gateway of a stable yard.
Oh, dear God in heaven, what is that? Is she breathing?
The murder of Mary Ann Nichols was the first step in a reign of terror that would grip London and the world. Jack the Ripper was never caught, and his identity remains the greatest unsolved mystery in the annals of crime.
Let them hunt. They will find nothing. My name is the one secret I am taking to my grave.
And so our journey through 10 days of history comes to a close. We have witnessed the brutal ends of heroes, rebels, and kings, from the execution of William Wallace to the assassination of Irish hero Michael Collins. We've seen how a nation's capital can be put to the torch and how the dream of a holy crusade can die in the desert. Thank you for joining us on Digital Decay.